All right, welcome everyone to What's Next, our second season, very appropriately launching on Mother's Day. And we're very excited to be hosting this virtually through the Pittsburgh Virtual Fringe Festival. We have had a great time over the last few days watching shows, and we're very excited to have some of the amazing team behind this festival and some of the special guest stars who performed during the festival. So I'd like to start by bringing in some of the main team behind all this. Welcome,
Hey,
Shayla Batchelder and Emily Patton. Thank you so much for
Hey,
joining us.
thank you for
thank you
having
for
us.
having us.
Wonderful. I just gotta say, I'm having the best time at your festival. You guys have done,
Thank
and
you.
everyone I talk to is having a great time, and they say you have just been so accommodating and working with everyone. So first off, I usually save it for the end, but I'm going to start the show with a big thank you
Aw.
for making all this happen.
Thank you.
Um, and
Honestly, we
you,
got really lucky, and we have awesome artists. Like the
Yeah,
people that we work with this year are really great.
yeah.
it really was a fun group. I mean, some of the meetups, just meeting people, they were really great. And I've got to say, though, I can't believe it's all luck because both of you have been incredibly involved with Fringe for many years.
Mm.
And not just Pittsburgh. So I'd love, because I don't know if you guys get enough chance to talk about yourselves. You guys do good things. You do good things. So, Shayla, why don't you start out with kind of Fringe? What is Fringe for you? What have you been doing with Fringe?
I I've been doing Fringe all my life since undergrad. So I started
Wow.
going as an undergrad at St. Andrews University to Edinburgh and produced a play there as a playwright and then as a director. And I had to run a whole venue to make my show fit. And me and the cast decided we liked running the venue. And
Mm,
so I ran a venue in Edinburgh for 13
wow.
years. Yeah.
So you
So,
started in Edinburgh. I mean, that's
yeah.
where most people do that the other way. They get there.
Yeah.
Wow. Very impressive.
So, and then at, on around our 13th year, we lost one of the venues that was sort of our like main space that we had. And
Hmm.
so I was able to pursue a new idea that I'd been wanting to do. We'd always worked with a lot of interns, and I was getting my PhD, which master's and PhD were also subject matter of the Fringe. So,
Oh.
so I just decided to start Fringe University, and so it helps university professors because I know how hard it is for them with all the work that they have to do to plan something. And going to Edinburgh is so intimidating, especially when you've got 5 to 20 students coming with you. So I do all the logistics for them, everything from booking accommodation. I produce them if they want to put on a show. So it could be like an acting class where we're producing a show. It could be an arts administration, like graduate class, where we talk to a bunch of actors and performers and other administrators and venue managers and just learn about the administration of it.
Hmm.
And we've even taught an international theater class because where else in the world can you go to one place and see people from every country in the world?
Hmm.
So there's a lot of different classes we can do, and we're open to anything, and we help do all the planning and logistics. So that's my Edinburgh experience. It's been almost 25 years of going there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so then from Edinburgh, how did you get to Pittsburgh and started this? Because this has been Pittsburgh's like 7 years now.
This is our 8th year
This is
now.
the eighth year. Wow. All right. So cut to 8 years ago.
Yeah, so I started meeting Fringe directors when I was writing my dissertation. And I also started having people seek me out on consulting for Fringe. So I actually consulted with Ben about the Hollywood Fringe before he
Hollywood
started up.
Fringe plug.
Yeah.
Ding 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 ding. Nice.
Rochester Fringe, various fringes, mostly in the U.S. since I lived
Hmm.
here. So yeah, so I've been consulting, and then sort of we knew we were going to be moving to Pittsburgh. We were in Philly at the
Hmm.
time,
Hmm.
and I found someone who was about to start a Fringe, and I'm like, oh, I like doing that kind of stuff, and I'm going to be moving here in a couple of years. So I
Wow.
actually started it with Dan while I still lived in Philly. So the first 2 years, I was essentially commuting to Pittsburgh while I started the Pittsburgh Fringe with Dan. So yeah, and here we are 8 years later.
8 years later. Well, that's very impressive, and congratulations on your 8th year. Um, Down below you, we've got Emily
Hey.
Padden. I told you at least once I
Oh
would.
no, it's cool. Everybody says it wrong, and the way
All
that
right.
we say it is Massachusetts. So it's yeah. Everybody gets a pass.
So Emily, I had seen you on Facebook over the last few years working with Grant. You always post really helpful, useful stuff. And I believe you had your ties in Orlando, but then I saw you at the Pittsburgh Fringe. I'm like, wow, so you're a big Fringer. Talk a little bit about your Fringe experience.
So I started out in theater and Fringe as a stage manager. I had a group that I was a part of in Massachusetts called Junkyard Dogs Productions, and we got into Edmonton, very different, on a whim. Like we knew we wanted to try it, so we applied and got in on the first try. And that was the first time I've ever seen Fringe, and we were like, what is this? This is crazy. Long story short, that was my first taste. And then I moved to New York and started helping out and volunteering with Fringe NYC, and I really loved it. And I loved being in that environment. Yeah. And then I ended up volunteering with friends of mine actually surfed in New York. So they got me into like wanting to go to Hawaii, and I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to go, I want to know about their theater scene. And they had a Fringe, so they started me volunteering with Fringe. Wow. So I volunteered with Misa and Oahu Fringe, which is really great. It's in their Chinatown. Did that for 2 years. Ended up getting involved. By that time, I was switched over to house management, and I started really getting into venue management and loving it. And I got into Capitol Fringe as a venue manager, and I was like, let me see how this goes. And oh God, I loved it. And the fact that I started meeting people who traveled, not just as performers, but as venue managers. So that first summer I did a bunch. I did that one. I did Fringe NYC officially as a venue manager. I did Boulder, and I got the bug. And I just wanted to meet more performers and more venue managers and more admins and help out from behind the scenes. And it all kind of snowballed. I ended up touring at least 3 times during the summer, just going to different Fringes and working with them. Minnesota I did. I worked for Charm City. I think I worked for them 5 times. I ended up also slowly moving down. Eventually moved to Orlando. Fun fact, 3 months before the pandemic. Yeah, and I'm still involved with Orlando Fringe. And I've, over the years, just kind of kept going and wanting to be a part and helping people connect to other Fringes, which is how I met Grant. So Grant kind of does the West Coast. I kind of do the East Coast, and we all kind of meet in between and talk to each other, network. So, and then I got involved with Shayla because I was like, I want to help out with your Fringe. I had met her before, and I thought she was fascinating. And I was like, let me know what I can do. And now I'm here. So.
I love it. I mean, that's a whirlwind tour.
Yeah.
That took that.
With Australia thrown in, but we don't have time, so it's fine.
and you're right now, Shayla, you're in Pittsburgh. Emily, are you in Florida or Pittsburgh?
I'm in Orlando. Yeah.
Orlando. Okay, that makes sense considering pandemic and all that. Well, I do have to. I see a comment up here that I know is directed to you. They just want to give you a little love. Diana Brown loves these theater makers. I couldn't agree more, Diana. And so now I get it. Now I see. You've got all this knowledge you've experienced here, and you put together just a wonderful virtual Fringe. And I know that you did this last year. I think I remember when everything's closing and people are kind of pivoting. The Pittsburgh Fringe did come out, and it was also just virtual, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got closed down about 2 weeks before we were supposed to open. Was when everything started tightening up and closing down. So we had to pivot very quickly. What we did is we pushed the festival forward a month. So instead of the first weekend of April, we were the first weekend in May last year. And so that gave everyone a month and a week or so to get ready and pivot. But we had to start our planning. It was a lot of work because we had to start from scratch because all those shows weren't going to work. So we started the application process again. We started doing all the marketing and started with all new shows. I mean, a few shows were able to translate, but I know like some of our local shows like Brawling Bard, it was very interactive and in person. And so they had to go back to the drawing board, pull out an old play that would work with something like Zoom. And in that like month, they learned Zoom inside and out. It was pretty amazing. And they're still doing great Zoom work for this festival this year. So yeah, so it was a quick turnaround. We were not quite the first festival since we pushed our dates back, but we were one of the first. And I think Grant said we're the only one who's gone, the first one to go twice.
Twice, yeah.
Boom,
Yeah.
which is great. And what was the number? We're gonna go through some of the stats for this year's show. Do you remember offhand how many shows? And did you do on-demand shows, or was it all just live performance?
We knew that people last year, you mean?
Yeah, I'm sorry, last year.
Yeah.
Last year, yeah.
So we knew that people didn't have much time to figure out all new technology. So we wanted to work with what they knew. So it was completely open. So it could be on demand, it could be Zoom. And actually we kept that for this year. So it's kind of crazy because I know some festivals want to keep it very organized and put everything through StreamYard or Zoom or only on demand. And we just saw the how nice it was for everyone to work in a format that they felt comfortable with.
Yeah.
So we decided to stick with that. I think it's a little harder on the audience because you're going to all these different platforms, but I think it's best for the artist, and that's kind of what our main goal is to do what's good for the artist.
And we truly didn't know what was going to happen last year. One of our artists did this amazing dance piece, and he put it on Facebook Live. And at one point we looked and it was up to 200 views, and we were like, what? Like and you could see all the emotions like flying through when we were like, I have no idea what's happening. Like it was awesome. It was really great and encouraging considering all this was going on around us, you know?
That's a great story, because that is definitely something, you know, Fringe artists sometimes have smaller houses. The crowds are normally smaller, or houses are small. They can be sold out shows. But a lot of artists are like, oh my God, I can't believe the number of people I'm getting because the audience can just open up. And it's great that you had the dance and the comment that Shayla made earlier in regards to the artist and the importance of the artist. And the one group that went to find a play to fit this format. I think that was one of the big lessons, one of the big things we're learning here is what works in this format. And what a great place to play. Like watching the shows I saw at your festival, people have come up with some brilliant ideas of working in this medium. And I think you were wise to kind of open it, because I saw one piece, it looked like maybe it was partially filmed and partially live, and then some pieces were very much filmed and then kind of live ones. And it was a pleasure to see them all. Plus, and I love this, I don't think I've seen this in a Fringe festival yet, you had a whole digital art thing going on where like you actually 3D'd through an art gallery.
Yeah.
What was that, a company you met up with? Like, how did that come around?
I just we used that last year too. I just Googled 3D art gallery and found this wonderful German company, and we learned how to use it last year because we wanted to make sure we included our visual art show still.
Yeah, that was really cool. That was a really
nice I love
one.
That program. Yeah.
So I don't know what your numbers were last year, but what I've got was very impressive for this year. So you had over 50, about 53 total performances, and 5 art exhibitions that went through that 3D gallery. 5 international shows. Can you give us a little idea of what countries those were from?
We had artists from 2 different countries in the same show. We had artists from Canada and Buenos Aires in the same show. They were in Point to Tango with Tango After Dark. We had an artist from Malaysia who literally did her show at 9:30 in the morning and 10 o'clock in the morning. And was still talking to me at 1 p.m. here, so God bless her. So we had her. We had a production company from Italy. They did Safe, FMG. And we had Sphere Clown Band, which is also from Canada. They're from Toronto. And technically, Elda Colcabe, who did Effing Robots, she is American, but she is in Scotland. So she counts.
Pretty good. And do you find when you were live, when you were in person Fringe, did you also have that big of an international pull, or was it bigger?
I mean, think about our visa laws here. It's very difficult for us to bring in international. And right now we're still only one weekend, so it doesn't really make sense for anyone to go through the visa application situation.
Yeah.
And I know that all the other U.S. Fringe managers have visa troubles, and it's very difficult for us to bring in international performers.
Yeah.
We'll get them occasionally, but it's usually because they're also in the U.S. for another reason, or they're at school or university somewhere in the U.S. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really hard for us to get international performers. We've had them, but it's difficult. So I really enjoy this format, the virtual format, being able to have international performers and international audience members. We had to schedule the Russian Bride at noon so that all the Russian audience members would be the right time for them.
Yeah, I forgot about that. They were actually answering in the chat of the show in Russian, and it took me a minute because they were early in the day, and I was like, oh, that's Russian. Okay, cool.
Oh, that's Russian. I mean, how exciting is that, right?
That's really awesome.
I mean,
Yeah.
that exposure, and definitely that's one of the things that people are talking about this pandemic is that exposure. Did you find that you had more artists this year in terms of wanting to present?
I think that we didn't know, I've said this a couple of times, but I mean it every time. Like we didn't know we were going to have this many artists where like we want to come and play and do stuff, to the point where when we asked people to guest interview artists, there was no question. They were like, absolutely, when do you need us? The fact that we had everybody wanting to jump in was great. And the fact that we had so many was amazing. We're usually kind of light on our deadlines, but we had to crack down on our deadlines this year because we were like, there's a certain point where we're not going to be able to help everyone. But we do try to help anyone who wants to perform. If you have a show, we'll want to get you in. But near the end this year, we were like, okay, now just Pittsburgh.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, what does it say? How many local shows? Oh, actually, I don't have it on my stats. Do you know what the breakdown is for local?
Oh, we were just looking at that this morning. It's about 10.
I think it's 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the rest
we had about I wrote this down the other day, 18 live performances, 4 special events and workshops, and then 20, I forget the number of on-demand shows, but it was a decent amount. So yeah.
So I love that spread, and I don't know if you know the answer to this. This is more of just Matt Quinn, producer, being curious. Do you see audiences like preferring live shows versus on-demand shows, or do you think that doesn't even matter?
It's hard to say. I mean, because live, you get that feeling of community. And I know that's a really nice thing that we would prefer, a lot of audience members prefer to have and get that. But the on-demand has the convenience of not hitting the exact right time, right? You can watch it as you fall asleep at 11 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock in the morning before you go to work. I mean, so they both have their pros and cons. Yeah.
We were actually talking about that this morning during our Fringing Now discussion. Every year we try to do a Fringing Now discussion. And we were talking about live versus taped and on demand and figure out which one people prefer. And the subject of accessibility has come up, which is something that a lot of fringes are really going through. This is the first year we were able to offer a closed caption show that the artist brought, which means alive. I know that other fringes like Orlando Fringe that I'm working with, they are also offering, this is the first year that they are offering sign language interpretation and audio description, which is amazing. And I think a lot of other fringes, us included, want to get to that accessibility point because it's important that everyone get a chance to see theater. You know, if you're in your home or if you get to go out or what have you, you know.
Yeah.
And that's for audience and shows too.
Yeah.
So the shows, there's performers who couldn't perform for one reason or another who are now able to perform. And then also the audience members.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the word that's being thrown around a lot in Hollywood and Hollywood Fringe, and I think life in general is accessibility. And while I do, and I think you have the events where we meet on Zoom, and there's like a community sense. And I know I've met people who I just know on Facebook. I got to kind of see them and say, hey, nice to meet you. And it's not the same as being in a restaurant or bar. But, these are the connections I feel. And one of the reasons I've enjoyed kind of fringing digitally is all these connections, are real. They're real connections you're making. And eventually we're going to be in the same room. And this year we were kind of productive, like doing our things. So thank you for doing that so that we can be doing this. and some of the love was also given out there. We want to call up Grant.
Aww.
He appreciates us being involved. Yes, you are always in our hearts, Grant. Yes. So, well, this is great. And it's been great to kind of get an overview of you and kind of the Fringe, but I've got two people waiting in backstage. If hopefully they're not hanging out the crafty table. I don't know. There was some really good stuff I put out there, but I think the stage manager is calling them. And I would now like to bring out two of your artists who performed in this year's Fringe, Stacy B and Joey Moronto. Welcome.
Hi, guys.
Thanks.
Hi, thank you for having us.
It's our pleasure. So you two, I was able to see some of your work on the Fringe, and I read some of your press releases and information like that. But why don't we just get it from the horse's mouth? Joey, tell us a little bit about your show and your relationship with Fringe, like as a Fringe artist. I know you're a stand-up comic, right?
In a previous life, yes. My show's about almost mirrors life here. It's about four washed up comedians who basically all met during the boom of the stand-up comedy boom, and as that sort of topped out, they all found jobs as children's television hosts on a religious broadcasting system, and they used that hoping that one day they would step them right into their own Hollywood TV show, and 30 years later, there they still are. And the conflict comes in when their show gets canceled, and they're at a midlife crisis, and figuring out they only have a couple more shows there. One of them, my characters, stumbles across an old script they had, and they did sort of being comedians, a adult version of their show, I guess, sort of put. And they figured, if we're going to go out with a bang, and they go ahead and take it from there, and it explodes from there. And it's more of an underdog type story. So you feel good for the four at the end.
I've heard it referred to as the Dirty Wiggles. Does that do it? Does that kind of sum it up?
It does, and it's funny that you brought that, because actually that's where the show came from. My youngest, who's 19 right now, anybody that has kids, and this is back in the 90s, in the early 2000s, is CDs and DVDs were all the go, and they had a character on there named Captain Feathersword, and he had this big long feather sword, and he would tickle people with them. And I'm watching this and listening to it, and I go, that's kind of kinky, when you look at it. And then I got the idea. I said, well, wouldn't it be funny if these writers actually wrote at the kids level, but made it interesting for the parents that have to watch this stuff? And all of a sudden we were going to my dad's house, kids strapped in, we were in the minivan, and all these ideas kept coming in, and I'm grabbing receipts and everything, writing all this stuff down. And before I forget about it, and as the years go on, I keep developing, mm-hmm. and especially I want to thank Shayla and Emily for having me here, and not only that, for putting this together for the community out there. I think after a year-long lockdown, this is what everybody needs, and I can't thank them enough for that.
I agree, Joey. Where are you based, Joey?
I'm down in Warrenton, Virginia.
In Virginia. Wonderful. So keep that national spirit. I love it. All right. And then on the other side, we've got Stacy B. And whereas Joey's is your classic Fringe, like writing receipts, seeing something, I'm going to make a show out of this, boom, boom. You're part of the art installation and element of this. And your show is Haiku Ninja Collection, which, by the way, excellent title.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about what you do and what you did with the Fringe and your work.
Well, I was so happy they were doing the art gallery this year. It pushed me way beyond my comfort zone, having to learn new software. And I mean, it was a lot more than I anticipated, if I'm being honest, but I'm so glad that I did it. And the Cliff's Notes is that at the shutdown last year, I already had a haiku happiness party on Zoom scheduled with a local news source. And people really reacted well to it. And so I started doing them every week. We originally started writing haiku about artworks.
Mm-hmm.
So I used a lot of local artists here, work from them, and we would brainstorm our observations and thoughts and feelings. And then we would create what I call a kuren, which is a multi. Yes, I named it because I created
love it.
So nothing that was already there fit this because it's a true collaboration. Every line of a multi-stanza haiku is written by a different person. So we brainstorm all the thoughts. I keep them all in the chat. And then when we're done, I say, who's got 5 syllables? Who's got 7? And people just toss out lines. And the next thing you know, we've got a 12 stanza haiku. So it became very clear to me, probably around the middle of April, because the first 15 minutes was being spent kvetching about COVID.
Yeah.
And I thought, people need this right now. They need an outlet where they can go and they can feel safe and dump about whatever they're feeling, because I mean, every time you pivoted, you had to pivot again.
Yeah.
The changes in the beginning were extraordinary. And I mean, my life is all about change. When you're an artist, that's just how you roll, you know. But it was mind-blowing. And so little by little, we started doing that, and we became the Haiku Ninja Collective. And there are 9 of us. We've written over 250 haiku at this point. We've done an installation of 5 bus shelters here in Pittsburgh.
Cool. Yeah.
To keep people connected, because my thing is haiku connects people to themselves, each other, and their environment in a way I've never experienced. And I've been a professional writer for 20 years.
Wow.
So it's really been an awesome opportunity to get people together and to have conversations about what's going on. And then, you know, the politics, 12 months, right, 14 months, whatever. So we are actually getting ready to publish our first book. Yes, which is called Absurdity, Buffoonery, and Calamity, ABCs of a Pandemic in Haiku.
Nice.
Oh, I love that.
Awesome.
Yes. And then the other half of the gallery is my own work. So half the gallery is the Haiku Ninja Collectives, and the other half is what I've done on my own.
Nice.
Okay, great. And actually that brings up, how long is the gallery up? Is that through?
It'll be through the whole month, right?
Oh, wonderful. But I got to go, because it really, everybody's got to go try this.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm going to put the...
It's a really cool experience to use a mouse to move around rooms of a gallery.
Yeah, I'm going to put this up. So this is, you can go to this link, and down on this link, I believe there's a link to the gallery.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is, it's like anybody's played old video games. You have got the keyboard, you walk around, and then you can kind of zoom in and get a really good, clear, really nice look at the image and walk around. And it really is, it's a wonderful kind of connection. And to kind of like what Joey said and Stacy hit on too, and all of us are talking about, we really needed this now.
Yeah.
Like we needed something to kind of escape, and it was not, and there was something about reading haiku in this kind of 3D space that was kind of like, this is really nice. It was a nice break for the audience. And then likewise for the actors and performers, you don't get the audience, you don't get people going, but Joey, did you find that you found like connections still working with people like online as you were doing it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I invited everybody to come out and check out the Pittsburgh Fringe, because like you said, it's something we needed right now. And it's very, and one of the nice things about the Fringe community is connecting with other artists. There's always such support out there. And especially in a time like this, it's great to see everybody still out there and active and supportive.
Yeah, it really, that's one of my loves of the Fringe community. And I've mostly been at Hollywood. I worked a little bit at San Francisco. But what's been great, like I met Shayla in Edinburgh like 2 years ago, was it? And
the last Fringe.
Yeah. And it's definitely that connection for artists, and then likewise meeting artists here at the different festivals. For both Joey and Stacy, have you done previous Fringes to this one, or was this your first time?
Did you want to go,
Stacy or
Stacy?
Joey?
This is my first time, so I really have nothing to contribute.
Well,
To that
I'm going to
question.
get back to you. That's not true. I'm totally going to get back to you. But Joey, how
Okay.
about you? Since we'll start with that question.
Yep, this is I've been in a number. Being in the DC area, I played Capitol Fringe a couple times, and the Pittsburgh Fringe, and when it was around Fringe Wilmington, up in Wilmington,
Oh, yeah.
Delaware.
Yeah.
Oh,
And-
wow. Okay.
Enjoyed it absolutely.
And is this your first Pittsburgh Fringe?
It's my second one.
Oh, it's your second one. Okay.
Yep, that was
All
at
right.
2019.
20. Oh, you did say so. 2019, you did it. Oh, so you didn't do it 2020.
Or was it
2020 was the virtual one.
I think
Okay,
it was
yeah,
2019. Yeah.
2019. Yes.
Yeah.
So
It was in
You
person.
did it in real life Fringe.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So, okay, good. Well, now there's a new question I can ask you. How was that? How was that? I mean, I'm different, obviously. And I don't want to compare it like better, worse, anything like that, because it's two different animals. But what would you say you kind of gleaned from the two different experiences?
I loved it. It was my first time to Pittsburgh. I played the Bantha T-Bar. I like, and especially coming from stand-up, I love intimate settings. And in there it was very intimate. You had the people up there, and I love that type of setting. To me, it's great. Virtual was it was new because, as you can tell with the gray hair, I'm going to be 53 this week, so I'm sort of old school, and this YouTube and streaming and everything. I mean, when I used to do stand up, the way our YouTube back then was, you would take a camcorder yourself, put it on VHS tape, give it to a booker, and so this is all kind of new to me now.
Well, you did it, and it looked great, and now you've done it. And now you can do it again, and you've got a tape to send around with it.
Yeah, and it's funny too because I had to learn how to use the iPhone. And this is a true story. I had a tripod from a standing camera. I taped my iPhone to that to go ahead and shoot this thing. Did what you got to do. Said it.
Whatever works.
Whatever works.
Yeah.
If you saw my living room right now, like what my laptop is on, you guys know.
That actually has been fun for me, talking to artists who are like doing what you guys are saying. Like, I'm just grabbing things. I have no idea. My room is I'm moving the computer around the room. But creative, right? I mean, how creative is this?
Yeah.
So Stacy B, first time Fringer in a virtual Fringe. How'd you like it? How'd you like having your art kind of out there with people seeing it that way?
I really love it. I think that because some of the art that I do is digital. Mm-hmm. And so that really dovetailed nicely for me, that I didn't have to, quite frankly, spend the money to go get gallery wrap prints and those kinds of things made in order to hang. So that worked out really well. I think it's a really wonderful opportunity for people to get to see a lot of different artists. And, because the Pittsburgh Fringe Gallery is a real mix of different kind of art. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity. Creative people are creative. It doesn't, I have often said that if I ever got stranded on an island, I would use tree sap to write because I have to write.
Yeah.
It's not a choice.
Yeah.
It's just not. So, and I think creativity is the same way for artists. If you're an artist, you have to create. You'll figure it out, whether it's duct taping a camera to a tripod, or finding new materials. I mean, I have a friend who paints with coffee and coffee grinds.
Oh, that's cool.
So you do what you got to do.
You do. And that was a big lesson, I think, for us for this year plus. You do what you got to do to get out.
Well, the alternative is artistic constipation. And who wants that?
Oh, that sounds painful.
It is painful.
Yeah.
It is. Seriously. When you're an artist and you go 3 or 4 days because everybody dealt with depression. I don't know one artist that in this world that has not dealt with cyclical depression over these last 15 months.
Yeah.
And, when you can't get out of bed and the only thing that gives you some kind of nudge to do that is creating.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the power of it.
Exactly. And so you got the Pittsburgh Virtual Fringe coming up, so you got to get out of bed.
I don't even remember how I found out about it, but I was like, I like that idea.
I like it. Well, it is. It's a great idea, and so this is kind of lead into to the second part of all this. Stacy, starting with you, do you once this is over, this month is over, are you going to look to like put your art, find some digital exhibit or run one yourself and kind of start doing that even as things open up?
That's a really interesting question that I had not thought of. My focus for myself personally right now is finding businesses and organizations who I feel would be connected to my art. Because in the visual art world, I have come to realize after an experience putting my name in the hat for a commission that that's a horrible business model. And if I were a Wall Street investor, I wouldn't put 2 cents into that business model where you spend 20, 30 hours putting a proposal together, put your blood, sweat, and tears, heart, and soul into it for infinitesimal odds. And I thought, you know what? I need to create a new model because this one, quite frankly, sucks.
Yeah.
So, let's find out, who, and I know like big developers go to Mon Arts here in Pittsburgh. They're the organization where most professional visual artists belong. And that's where interior designers go to get artwork for buildings that are going up.
Interesting.
But there are plenty of other places that are doing renovations or who are going to be welcoming back customers or patrons who are going to want mural art or some type of art. And so to me, it's about finding a different way to do it because for the majority of artists, the current way does not work.
Stacy, I like your thinking. And I think maybe too, Pittsburgh Fringe may have given you a nice little.
Oh, it definitely. I would not
ideas.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
very appreciative.
That.
Yep.
I love how Fringe can do that. How about you, Joey? What did you take away from doing digital and kind of what's going on? What are you thinking about this? Are you going to do more virtual fests during this next few months? Are you looking for in real life?
Yes, I am. In fact, I'm glad you brought that up because this year's kind of special for me. I'm like I said, this week, I'm going to turn 53 years old. And I'm much like my character in my solo performance. I'm kind of getting to the end of my performing career. So I think this is going to be my last hurrah. And I think starting off with Pittsburgh Fringe, I'm also at the Big Sky Fringe and then Minnesota Fringe as well. And I'm looking to go out and have fun. What I started doing now is through my show, Shepherd's Gone Wild, I wrote a television pilot. And I started entering it into different screenplay competitions. And in the last few months, I actually made it to the semifinals of the Fade In Festival screen competition out in Los Angeles, as well as the New York City International. And then I made it to the quarterfinals in the Boston and the Atlanta screenplay festivals.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you. So that'll be my new outlet, but I'm really, that's why, doing this virtual, I think it's great because it allows, especially being on the East Coast, being able to travel out farther, Midwest, West Coast, and it gives you a little bit more opportunity. And considering this is pretty much going to be my last year, I'm having fun. I'm appreciating every minute of it. And again, I'm so happy to be part of the festival.
Oh, that's a great story, Joey. And I think sending positive energy for the next step for you. I mean, let's Fleabag. Come on, Fleabag did it. We can all do this. We can all change our piece to an Amazon streaming series. She has set the goal, the path.
Yeah.
I think that's great. And actually, I will probably be seeing you at Big Sky.
Awesome.
I'm good friends with Victoria, that's a new fest. Actually, they were supposed to open first last year.
Yeah.
And then now it's pushed this year. So I'm looking forward to, I think we're going to do this show over there. And then I don't think it's too late for us to apply for the Minnesota Fringe as well. So Joey, see what I'm saying? We're already making connection here. I'm going to see you at all these other fringes. And that's the magic and without rubbing it up too much, that I think Fringe really, really offers. One of the great things I hear, and you mentioned it here and everybody's brought up, one of the accessible parts of this Fringes is that there was no fee for this. And this was very open, which is incredibly generous. And from what I'm hearing from artists, really necessary during these times. And so again, I applaud that decision. And then at the same time, I need to ask kind of what's next with all this as we're kind of going into next year. What did you learn from this Fringe? Are there any, and this is too soon, I get it. You're probably just still waking up from yesterday and you've got the award ceremonies coming up tonight. Are there things like the gallery, which I found fascinating? You started that last year. See, I thought that, and that was because of COVID, right? Kind of thing.
Yep.
So is that something you think, we'll start simple. Is that something that you think you'll keep as this progresses, or you don't want to say?
It's so hard to know. I know that along with me, a bunch of other directors are thinking about how to maybe incorporate some of the stuff we learned and figured out with the virtual world because of the accessibility issue. Like, how can we also bring in some virtual and make a hybrid model even when everything's back to normal? Because we can include so many more people and have more accessible audience. We can have audiences from around the world still. We've been thinking about this quite a bit, but we still have a lot of time to think about it.
Yeah.
And I think it's like looking at some of the other more established venues or year-round venues that are bringing in the cameras and doing virtual with it in person at the same time. Their audiences are more than twice as big now, right? Even though they're at like 20% capacity because of the virtual. But that's also a little bit hard to do in a temporary space, right? In the Bantha Tea Bar, getting all the technology figured out for that and 10 different spaces might be difficult too, right? So it depends on technology and how to bring that in and if that's possible. So there's a lot of logistics to figure out how much of it we can do.
Right.
Now, if it was just some online and some in person, and not videoing the in person, that might be a little bit easier.
Right.
So,
but
is everyone going to be sick of it? I don't know.
I mean,
that's the thing that we were worried about too with applications. We were really worried people were going to be sick of it and be like, we're not going to apply. We're going to wait till things open up. We were really championed, at least I was really championed with a number of performers who applied. And I think that helped informed our audiences because once they realized there are 52 shows, I think that audiences really responded to that in a way. And we had people tune in this weekend that I think that, not that they weren't planning on tuning in, but they realized it was big and that there were people willing to kind of give of their art. And I think that really kind of resonated with people. So I think that you know, the want is there. I don't think it's going to be, when we are in person, I don't know if that want is going to be there next year as much, but I think it will be a little bit because of the accessibility. But yeah, Shayla and I are going to probably talk about it and figure out exactly, with our venues and everything.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. Well, I'm going to speak on Stacy's behalf to have that virtual gallery, because that I just think is awesome. And if you get a real gallery too, great, bring it all in there. But I do appreciate it. We're dealing it now with Hollywood Fringe. We're going streaming, but we may go hybrid. And Shayla, just like you said, it's like, how do you equip 10 theaters with equipment to do this? But at the same time, it's great to have those shows come in. I mean, Joey's down there and he could be in Hollywood next year with his TV series, but he still wants to do a show in Pittsburgh and he can Zoom. So I'm just saying, no pressure. I know these are big challenges right now. And a side note, Emily, with Orlando Fringe is opening up in like a week or two. And they're doing hybrid, right?
Yes, we're doing a Fringe that is in person in a week and a half because I schedule well. But yeah, I'm involved in that in a week and a half. And we are going to do, it's a lesser capacity in all of our venues. We are listening to the CDC in all aspects. So we are not at 100% capacity. Performers are being safe as well as audiences. And then in June, we're going to do a Digi Fringe. Which is going to be some of the shows that have just performed live, and they're doing the taped version. And the people that just got trained in our audio description services program are going to be doing audio description, for the
Oh,
Digi
that's
Fringe.
cool.
So our hybrid is actually a little later than our main festival, but the main festival will be live in a week and a half.
In a week and a half. That's amazing. And I view
Yeah.
all of that as hope. Like, I love those stories.
Yeah.
Like, as someone who runs venues, it's exciting safely to think about people coming into theaters. And at the same time, and this is like, I think to your point, like, are people going to still be interested in this? Like, in the months to come, if suddenly I can go to a theater for reals right down the block. And that's the big unknown. But I do, like, if I were to guess and weigh it out, this, 200 people seeing a dance piece, people from Russia seeing a piece from Russia, people coming in from all over to put their show, you're not going to be able to get that in real life festival.
Yeah.
So I know it's challenging, but again, as we've really been discussing here, it's that creative challenge that the artists are up to that we need. If it's there, you build it. Shayla, Emily, Michael, I know Michael's not there, but Michael, all of you guys build this, that they will come. And like you said, I know I was talking to Victoria at the Big Sky, and she's like, I can't believe how many people are subscribing to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's really exciting. It really is.
Yeah.
So this is great. I've enjoyed our little chat. We're kind of coming to the end. Any final thoughts about this year's Fringe, and or kind of what you see kind of doing next steps for you, besides for Shayla and Emily probably taking a long, well-deserved nap.
Sleep.
Yes.
For 2 days.
Stacy, we haven't heard from you in a while. You're going to go out and fight the big fight, redo the model for artists.
I am. That's my goal, and I am also collaborating with someone to put my words on clothing.
Nice.
Stacy, you are so smart. I'm going to share your website up here so everybody can connect with you, because you've got some serious ideas there.
I do. And I would say to any artist who is contemplating whether or not to get involved with Fringe, do it.
Do it. You heard
don't let the demons or the imps or whatever you want to call them that ping pong around your mind dissuade you. Because is it a different experience in person? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we are where we are. Yeah. And as the Buddhists say, suffering only comes from a lack of acceptance. So this is where we are. Nice. And I think what's been done with where we are is incredible.
Yeah, I agree. It really is. It's been amazing what's been going on. So Stacy B, that's great. I love all those words. Hey, excellent. And Joey, how about you? I'm going to bring up your Instagram over here. What do we got coming up besides the Big Sky and other fringes?
Just that, and then just concentrating on the writing. Right now, I'm just entering a lot of festivals in there, or a lot of screenplay competitions, and seeing what happens. I mean, and one thing, if anything, this pandemic has taught us is appreciate every moment, not only personally, professionally, and enjoy everything. Because I mean, 2 years ago, who would ever thought we'd be doing virtual here? So anytime any performer steps on stage, I say enjoy every moment of it and give it your best out there, and just enjoy.
Yeah, they just started opening up some stand-up clubs here in LA, and it's like you pay by the minute, and you have 9 audience members. And you're in and out, but people want that little taste. Are you finding it, Joey, easy or tough to write in this pen? But some people are like, I got all this time and I can't write, and it's so tough. Or have you kind of found your writing zone in this?
A little bit, yeah. It comes and goes. You really have to be inspired. I mean, it's really you really just have to find whatever inspires you. And once you get it, go with it. So with me, I know it comes in waves, but when it's there, I jump both feet in.
Jump in. I love that. Excellent. All right. And Shayla and Emily, what can I say that I already haven't just showered on you? Except Stacy brought up a good thing. And we didn't get this banner made, so I'm going to create it right now. Shayla also runs the United States Fringe, or you don't run it. You're involved with it.
I'm just part of it. The U.S. Association.
I don't want to give you too much. I don't want to make the queen of Fringe.
I'm just part of it.
Yeah.
The U.S. Association of Fringe Festivals. The U.S. Association of Fringe Festivals.
What do you have the website by chance? Because I'll bring
It's
that up.
USAF.
I think it's usaf.com, right?
USSF.com. Do you have the website? Let me see. Does that look right?
I don't see.
It's
USA. Yeah.
One more time.
The USA, U.S. Association of Fringe Festivals.
I gotcha.
Hmm.
I mentioned to everyone backstage, my engineer's out today because it's Mother's Day. USAF, is that right?
And it's .org.
Or USAF.org.
We're a little tired.
No, don't, please. You are all good with me.
USAFF.org. 2 F's, Fringe Festivals.
We're almost there.
It's
So I
live.
looked this up. It's a little painful, but we're almost there. And this is my computer is the reason this popped in my head is because Stacy brought up about doing Fringe festivals. If you go to this site, you will see a list of all the Fringe festivals around the nation in the United States. And it's a great starting off point for you to go out. You heard Joey went to a bunch of sites. Emily's been all over. Shayla's been all over. Without going to the World Fringes, because there's a World Fringe site too. But this is a great way to go out there and kind of travel around the country in real life when we can. But digitally, I've really enjoyed doing what like Joey's been doing and visiting cities virtually. So definitely check that out. So Emily, with you, you're about a week and a half, you're off to Florida. Any other big things? Any other big what next coming for you?
I'm talking, we've started, I work with Charm City in Baltimore. And we've been talking about trying to figure, because our Fringe is in the fall. So we're trying to figure out how to move forward. We have not figured that out yet. So we're in preliminary. So if you had to do something, but well, I'm sure the boys, Zach and Mike, will have something figured out shortly, and we'll all get together and figure out if it's safe to travel or not. So that's probably going to be the next big one is Charm City, which reminds me a lot of Pittsburgh in the sense of like the community and the artists. So that's, I think, the next big one after Orlando. And I may try to kind of dabble in the summer. I would love to check out Min Fringe again. I know they're doing virtual options. Shout out to Min. But this summer's with everything going on, it's going to the first time that I can actually look at an open space. So I have to figure out kind of between now and fall. So that's kind of open, but right now, definitely Charm City. So
okay. Get some sleep in there, Emily.
Yes.
Just a little bit. Just rest. It's good.
A tiny bit.
A tiny bit. Tiny bit. And Shayla, I know I promise you I'm not going to pounce on like, what's next? What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? I did it a little bit. But you've done a great job getting this all going. What are you kind of see for the next coming months and kind of what's next for you?
Well, I mean, I think everyone should take advantage of being able to tour to all these Fringes that are virtual right now, because you might not have the money or the resources or the time to do it normally. So I think getting out there to all the other virtual Fringes as much as you can, the Digi Fringe for Orlando, there's a lot of them. Not all of them are doing it, but most of them are trying to do something online. So, and I've been talking to artists who have toured more than ever this year because it's easier to travel when you don't travel.
I like that. That should be a quote. I don't think it's a haiku, but maybe a t-shirt. It's so much easier to travel when you don't have to travel.
I can make it into a haiku.
I bet you can. But it's true, and that's been kind of the new discovery for all the the silver lining is we're apt to say right now has been that. Before we wrap up, I do have another quote out there from Annie Lois Feeney. Congrats and thanks for making it happen. Aww. And I really do.
Man.
I want to end with the thanks for the artists for sharing your work and going out there, even with your iPhone taped to a tripod and sending it out there. And Stacy, your new ideas for the plan for art and the haiku. I love that. That's great. Shayla, Emily, thank you so much. It's been great being a participant in this. I've really enjoyed, talking to you more and being a part of this community. And I hope sometime to be in Pittsburgh live. I think that would be a lot of fun.
We'd love that. Yeah,
absolutely. It would be great. So, all right. Well, thanks again for coming. And
Thank
I will look
you.
forward to seeing
Thank
you
you.
all later on. All right,
Yeah,
stay
thank you,
backstage. We'll have a
Matthew.
drink afterwards.
Okay.
So
Oh, yeah.
wait for me back. All right. Thank you. All right, everyone. Well, that was an excellent start of a new season for What's Next. We're going to be having some pre-recorded shows from New York's Darren Lee Cole and Martha Dempson from Los Angeles to talk about what's next and various elements of our theater community. You can catch all of our shows on youtube.com/combined art form. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Support Fringe and support small theater. We'll talk to you soon.